Hey YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to Imperium Gaming. Ubisoft officially revealed the new Black Prior hero on January 15th, 2019, but I wanted to wait until today's Warriors Den livestream to analyze the historical authenticity of the new Knight hero. Notice how I say historical authenticity and not historical accuracy. For Honor is, as you may know, a fantasy game, so it's not meant to be historically accurate. I'm going to instead use this video to discuss and analyze the various arms and armor of the Black Prior. Not necessarily to nitpick, but to give you all a greater historical context. Just remember that this is, in fact, a fantasy game. Do keep in mind that I'm not a HEMA expert or experienced fencer, as in I have never held or used these weapons before, be it reenactment or competition, so I can't really comment on some of the functionality of the arms and armor in question. I'm just referring to my own knowledge and source material, be it literary or iconographic. Also keep in mind that I'm not looking at every single piece of gear for the Black Prior. I'll mostly be taking a look at the default gear, with a few exceptions. For more commentary on the Black Prior's gameplay and fighting style, there are a bunch of For Honor content creators out there. My personal favorite is Raven Gaming. I'll go ahead and link his channel if you're interested. With that out of the way, let's get started. When I met with Damien Kite, the former game director of For Honor, at E3 2018, I spoke with him about the team's decision to add the Wu-Lin, and he told me that when they design new heroes, they start with their weapons. In other words, weapons that are aesthetically and or functionally unique to what's already in the game. Enter the Black Prior's kite shield and arm and sword. Starting with the kite shield, I want to clear up a common misconception. These are often known as Norman kite shields because of their rather popular inclusion in the Bayeux Tapestry, which details, in part, the Battle of Hastings and the conquest of Anglo-Saxon England by the Duke of Normandy, Guillaume, or William the Conqueror. The Norman knights and infantry in the tapestry are equipped with the kite shield, but it's important to note that kite shields were used throughout medieval Europe in this time period, for example, in Spain. So, it would be erroneous to refer to these shields as Norman kite shields. They're just kite shields. We know that the Black Prior's kite shield is from a slightly later period, maybe mid to late 12th century, because of the flattened or truncated top of the shield. Earlier forms of the kite shield, as we see in the Bayeux Tapestry, were rounded, but they were eventually cut down, presumably, and I could be wrong, for better visibility. This is actually one of the first signs of the transition from the rounded kite shield to the smaller triangular HEADGEAR shield of the later medieval periods. I do like the very obvious representation of wood for the shield. Historically speaking, this is absolutely correct. Good job, Ubisoft. We also see both the shield boss and rivets for the shield's grip, which is attested in iconography, such as the Bayeux Tapestry, although it does seem the shield bosses were optional in some cases. The arming sword looks fine to me. The For Honor website referred to this weapon as a longsword, but this is a slight misunderstanding. This is more than likely an arming sword, just given the size. I'm sure someone who's more familiar with swords than I am will comment on some of the finer points of the Black Prior's sword, such as the dimensions of the crossguard. But again, this is just a brief overview. I would also like to add that the Black Prior's primary weapon should technically be a spear, but swords were indeed used, so we can let this slide. When we take a look at the armor, we'll notice a lot of plate. Historically speaking, this is a bit of a problem. Not necessarily the plate armor itself, but its combined use with the kite shield. In the period where kite shields were most prevalent, the main type of armor used was mail. Of course, mail continued to be used in combination with plate armor throughout the later medieval periods. But if we date this kite shield to the mid to late 12th century, then the Black Prior's primary armor should be mail. That being said, some of these elements of plate, though anachronistic, aren't terrible. We see some spalders for the shoulders, couters for the elbows, and hourglass gauntlets with plate protection for the individual fingers. Of course, this is all highly stylized for, again, a fantasy game, and it's incredibly anachronistic. But it does seem that the team did their preliminary research in order to understand the very general functions of these armor pieces. Don't get me wrong, they're not great. They just wanted to take artistic liberties, which is, of course, fine. As long as you know that. For the Black Prior's torso, we do see some indication of mail armor, which is good. It's probably not depicted in the best way, but there's at least some semblance of mail. The hero's surcoat has slits either along the sides of the legs or along the front and back, which is attested in iconography. This makes sense since knights needed to sit comfortably on horseback. Historically, surcoats were also used, in part, to show off heraldic imagery and status, which is technically an option players have in the game, although you'll more often than not see some funky modern or hardcore heavy metal inspired designs instead of historically authentic heraldry. I'll start by saying that I do like the crowns on some of the default headgear. Of course, a knight wouldn't wear a simple cloth hood into battle, but I like the symbolism behind this crowned aesthetic. It could be interpreted as a callback to the thorns of Christ, which is fitting given the semi-religious nature of the Black Prior. For example, the name Prior itself is a reference to medieval monastic order, that is, the hierarchical structure of the monastery. There's one helmet that looks like it was inspired by a great helm from the late 12th to early 13th century. It has a flat top, so this indicates that it's indeed inspired, at least in part, from an earlier model. Later great helms, sometimes referred to as sugarloaf helms, had more of a rounded top, which helped deflect missiles and glance off blows from the sword, essentially lessening their force of impact on the wearer's neck and spine. This is a feature we also see in later conical helmets, like the bassinet. Given the dating, it's not impossible for a great helm to have been used in conjunction with the truncated kite shield, so I guess that's fine? However, this is unlikely, since fully developed great helms are more often associated with later heater shields, especially at the start of the 13th century. Though inspired by a flat-top great helm, there are still, of course, and as with some of the other pieces of armor, issues concerning its historicity. The main issue I see is in regards to the helmet's eye slits, or lack thereof. You need eye slits to see. You could argue that you could see through the ventilation holes, but historically, you would expect proper eye slits. You would also expect ventilation holes to be in place only on the right side of the helmet. This is because opposing knights on horseback would face each other's lances on the left as they passed. This great helm has a unique aesthetic crown design, but we can chalk this up to being both an artistic choice and a slight reference to actual historical ornamentation, such as tournament armor. Either way, despite its issues, this is probably the helmet I'll be using with my own hero. So all in all, this is the quote-unquote knight with the shield and sword hero we've been asking for a very long time now. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this analysis doesn't want to necessarily nitpick all the historical inaccuracies with the new hero. That being said, although some pieces are fairly authentic, like the kite shield, the hero's arms and armor are, as a whole, largely anachronistic, and would have never been seen at the same time on the battlefield. Not to mention the fact that they're all highly stylized. However, I think the Black Prior looks awesome, and as a gamer, I can't wait to try them out on release. I just wanted to give you all a very brief look at the history behind some of the hero's arms and armor. Nothing super in-depth, but just a little something. Thanks for watching, and for more on your favorite historical games, stay tuned with Imperium Gaming on YouTube, Twitter, and on our blog. Links in the video description. Thanks again, and until next time.
Hey guys, it's Imperium Gaming. Please do that for your